Dear viewers, thank you for watching us again. Today's guest is Minnesota State Representative Heather Keeler. She has been an advocate and an activist in the three-state region for 2 decades, working tirelessly to improve community healthcare, education, and public welfare. She continued to do all of this as a member of Minnesota House of Representatives. I'm very happy to have her with us today. First of all, how are you in these turbulent times?
Thanks for having me. I'm good. I feel like every day is a new journey and we have to take it, with an open heart and open mind. And so if we continue to move that way, I think we're coming to a healing path, I hope real soon.
I hope that of that too. So let's start. This is your first term. Given that the election process took place in the pandemic times, the campaign itself certainly looked different. Can you explain for me how you ran that campaign?
Yeah, so I didn't knock on any doors because for me, the health of my community is a priority. It's, working in healthcare, especially with underserved communities. It was something that was really important to me, that I didn't want to increase any exposure, any risk, or any fear in my community around the pandemic. So a lot of phone calls. We did social media activities, on different platforms. We really just tried to be creative, and find different ways to connect with people. I think that, my previous experiences working in the community helped, even though I've never ran for anything before as like a political figure. I have been really involved in the community. And so I think people knew me from that space too. And so it wasn't overly difficult because I've never ran in another campaign to even compare it to. And so for me, we just had to get creative and really did the best that we could.
You said that you were not a politician, nor did you have the ambition. I read that ambition to enter the politics. However, your decision to enter the political arena is motivated by the same passion that drives your activism. How important is exactly that passion if we decide to take a political race?
Yeah, so it is really hard because I think in the systems design today, there's not really a path given to people who look like me on how to become state leaders, federal leaders, local leaders. We see it in voter suppression, but we also see it in candidacy outreach. And so, growing up, I didn't see people who looked like me in positions like this. And as I got older, I realized that because of the lack of representation in these spaces, decisions weren't being made, the communities like mine in mind. And also, even decisions were being made that were harming our communities. And so when the seat opened up in my community, 20 women reached out to me and encouraged me to run because they wanted some different options and candidates, in the community. And so I thought about it a lot and I thought, I'm a mom and there's a lot of things that I really am unhappy with in the systems. And instead of just feeling the pain of the systems and being upset with the systems, I decided to get involved with the system and try to create some change. And so the political world is a very different landscape, but really it's activism at its highest compassion and motion, really.
Something I liked about your speeches is that you always emphasize how you stand for inclusion, so you can't practice any form of exclusion yourself. Can you explain in more details what exactly you meant when you said that?
So that conversation was around, it was at the very beginning of the campaign when door knocking was still a possibility. The pandemic didn't really kick in until like March is when we all started to stay at home. And so that conversation, people were asking me, are you going to pick and choose which doors you knock on, or, how are you going to go around your community? And I said, I'm going to knock on all the doors. My team's going to knock on all the doors because it's important that as we sit in these seats as elected officials, we're here to represent our entire community. And though we might not agree all of the time, it's important to listen to each other. And so for me, it was practicing what I say over and over, and trying to listen to all viewpoints of my community. And I think that's important. And then when I get here, it's the same way. I say often that we have to find slivers of commonality in this work. We're not going to agree with everybody, even in our own party, but we have to find the small pieces that we can really work together, because that's when we make the best moves for the entire communities.
One of your fights was for the Office of Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women in Minnesota, and it was established in this year's public safety omnibus budget. I spoke about this with also Senator Mary Konesh. And can you tell me more a bit more about this and why this is important that an office like this is set up? For people in my country, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, to also understand?
Yes. So we say that we collect data and we tell the stories about the things that we really care about. And when Native American women go missing, there was no data. And we see like the media doesn't share the story. And so it's been something that's been swept under the rug for way too long. I mean, really, ever since colonization started, Indigenous women have been victimized, sexualized, and brutalized on this land. And so we've been saying for a really, really long time that we need to look into this. And when women go missing, it's easy to blame jurisdictions, like, is it the tribal community's responsibility to look? Is it the local community? Like, it gets in this weird shuffle of responsibility. And at the end of the day, nobody's looking for our women. And so what Senator Kunish did when she was in the House, she really pushed to have the task force that addressed this and brought some data forward. And that really launched us into then this step to create the office. It was one of the things that I was most excited to work on when I got here, because a couple years ago, Savannah Graywin went missing in my community. And, it changes you when women who walk alongside you in other activism efforts goes missing in your community, and you see the lack of support and efforts to find her. It's heartbreaking, and it happens everywhere, and all of us have those stories. And so to be the first in the nation to actually invest in an office, I think says that we're really here to care and protect our relatives. And so it's just really been meaningful to be a part of that work. And I'm looking forward to see how it grows and how other states kind of get on board, and we grow this at a more regional effort as well.
One of the reasons why I was so thrilled to have this opportunity to speak with you is because I see you as a real example of a new wave of female politicians. For me, when I watched your videos, your conversation interviews, you are, for me, very open. You speak about topics that sometimes are still a taboo. And in one of your videos, I cannot recall exactly which one, but you called yourself domestic abuse warrior. Can you explain to our viewers why?
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I believe in is transparency. And I think that we have to be honest about who we are, so that we're honest about the conversations that we need to have. It's easy to share the great and wonderful things about us. I can share my degrees, I can share the work I've done, but I think that we really connect as humans when we get down to a human level of who we are. I know that I'm not alone in the statement that I have really suffered some massive abuse through partnerships, but also just through sexual violence. Also, I attempted suicide, and so those are real things. I'm a real person because I experienced that in my life, and I call myself a warrior through it because it doesn't define me. Those spaces in my life actually made me stronger and made me who I am, and it gives me a new perspective of why it's so important to be in this space and fight for these things. And I know that a lot of people tell me to compartmentalize what I share in this seat, and I just really believe that I'm here to impact the next generation. And if I can be honest in who I am and the opportunity that I have in this seat, hopefully what it does is that there's a little girl out there or somebody in our youth that can hear or see a message and realize that it's a possibility for them, that they're not too broken to do this work. And we all deserve to be at this space and make these changes together so that we can change, the way that people live sometimes.
And thank you for doing that. Also, one of the things which was very interesting for me is Mom Demands Action movement. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Sure. So Moms Demand Action is a single issue group that really focuses on gun violence prevention. We want to keep our kids safe. For me, the biggest space in that organization that I find myself drawn to is suicide prevention. As I just mentioned, it's something that's really personal to me, but also I worked in school districts. I've worked with kids grades 7 through 12 for many years, and I know how much we need to have those conversations. And we need to have conversations around gun safety in our homes, especially when our mental health with our kids is coming into a really complicated space because the pandemic is increasing mental health concerns with kids. And so for me, I like what they do in that space. I like that they're an organization that's open to really learn how to move forward with the best inclusive legislation efforts. And they're good partners. They're good partners to work with because they really care about protecting our kids, and that's important to me.
When you think about future generations, what would you like to leave them as a legacy? And what are you afraid of when you think about the situation that new generations are growing up now?
Mm-hmm. So the legacy, we believe in 7 generations. We believe that the 7 generations before us have impacted where we are today. And I know that any movement that I make is going to impact the 7 generations after me. Each generation is about 25 years. And so we're coming into the 7th generation of colonization, from when things started to shift on Turtle Island. We're now into this new generation. And so for me, a legacy would be just continuously impacting and passing down the pride of who we are and knowing that our voices matter in these spaces. And sometimes we have to stand up alone. And sometimes that's really scary and it's really hard. And it takes a lot of courage and our voice might quiver and we might not say it right, but we need to stand up because our voices are valuable. And I want our kids to know that and see that and really understand that. And so I think that would be the legacy that I would hope to leave.
From this time distance and experience that you gained, what advice would you give to a woman who are thinking about running for the office on next elections?
I think that the best advice I can give you is you're never going to be ready, so just do it. I think in our minds, we overthink like, is now a good time? Could somebody do it better than me? Do I have too much going on? Do I even know enough about the system? It is all a learning process. There are people who have sat in their seats for a very long time and they're still learning things. And so we're never really ready, but if you have the passion to really be a voice for change and to be a voice for the people, explore the opportunity. And it doesn't mean necessarily that you need to run maybe right now, but get involved in a campaign. Really like maybe even be a campaign manager and really see what it's like. I know a lot of people have internships available if you wanted to sit with us and kind of learn what it's like in the life of the day of, because I think there's a lot of things that we don't know that would be helpful up front. But outside of that political path, I think that anybody, whether we're choosing to run for re-election or your first time, come up with a self-care plan. This work is really hard work. and you have to be able to take care of yourself and your own foundation. And so if you're going to run, when you decide to run, make sure that somewhere on a little sticky note, you still have a self-care plan and you do your best to build that into your really busy schedules, because campaigning and this work can take up a whole lot of time, but you have to make time to invest in yourself.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you are doing. Thank you for being an inspiration. And of course, thank you for making a time for this conversation.
Yeah, this was great. Thanks for having me.